with Gloria Orwoba, who is now, with things, how they've changed, we're not even sure the title to use, but perhaps she will tell us as we get into it. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good. The title has never changed.
All right.
Because this is the second reinstatement. The first one was in the Political Parties Tribunal.
Okay.
And what happened is UDA went to appeal the ruling of the tribunal. The tribunal basically said, UDA, you are wrong. You wrongfully removed her and gave orders to reinstate me. They ignored the orders as usual. They went to the High Court and they tried to get the tribunal. They put an application to basically ask the High Court to revert. I mean, to quash the ruling of the tribunal. They basically went to the High Court to say, High Court, please tell the tribunal they were wrong. And the High Court said, no, the tribunal was in order and the ruling should
stand.
Executed, and it stands. And you should actually execute. Basically, you should reinstate her back to Senate again. So this is a second court saying the same thing. So the reason why I always tell people, legally, and because we are law-abiding citizens, legally, I've never really stopped being a nominated senator.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nominated Senator Gloria Orwoba is here with us this morning. Of course, we're going to be looking into the intrigues of all of this and why it's so difficult for us to be able to follow the law. And especially when we're looking at tribunals, which are lawful entities, as well as then the court. But before we do that, let's look into today's proverb. We're in Egypt this week. And you might like this one. We'd love to get your interpretation of it.
Got lost again.
I tell you, I don't know what's wrong with this proverb today. I find it and then it just disappears.
The problematic proverb.
Okay. So, once, if, okay, it was here and then it disappeared. Just give me a minute. He who burns his tongue from soup will blow cool in yogurt. He who burns his tongue from soup will blow in yogurt.
That sounds very complicated.
It's actually not. Think about soup. Do you drink cold? Do you cold soup?
No.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So he who burns his tongue in soup will blow in yogurt. And think about yogurt and its properties. I'm just giving you the answers here.
No, Osida here has to help me. I better not pretend like the current regime that I know everything. When you don't know, you just say you don't know.
So you think about the soup, it's hot soup and your tongue. So it gets burnt and you look for the yogurt.
To cool it down.
Okay, so now interpretation.
Yes. So in your life, every day, how you see things. Hot things, cold things. Soup.
One is used to extinguish the other. Situation may never last forever. Or maybe you actually need to bring in a coolant where there's a hot situation. Can you think of certain situations where those things might be?
It's just a proverb. It doesn't have to be right.
No, I'm just saying, I'm trying, normally when I get proverbs, I try to contextualize it with everyday life. And I'm like, okay, I'm trying to, what's the symbol of the hot soup and the symbol of the
cold yogurt?
So hot soup goes with your tongue. So you are burning your tongue. He who burns his tongue from soup. So you're
like in your life, Kevin, tell us.
Yeah, if I face difficulties, there is a better tomorrow.
There's a way out.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, there is always light at the end of the tunnel.
Precisely.
See?
That's it. Well done.
Okay, we're there.
I'm telling
Finally.
you. Today is that day.
Okay.
Yeah, so however hot things may be.
That is true. Everything is for a season. That's true.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so, of course, if we're going to look at seasons, so in the last week, we saw that the High Court essentially came and said whatever happened at the Political Parties Tribunal and that was ruled upon then remains. And of course, we know that when the court gives an order, we all abide by it, no? I mean...
the Political Parties Tribunal is also a court and it gave orders and the orders were ignored. They were ignored by IBC, they were ignored by UDA, they were ignored by Senate, the Speaker of the Senate, the Parliamentary Service Commission Chair. They were ignored by everyone. So I am to me, it's that thing of we already know that these people are not going to follow court orders.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm not holding my breath.
So what's your last point of call? Like you are nominated senator, already there is a reinstatement, you are in court, the court has already made serious rulings to your favor.
Mm-hmm.
And then what?
Well, for me, it's a matter of being vindicated. And I have been vindicated. And I've been vindicated over and over for the last 1 year. It's been 1 year, actually.
Yeah.
We're going into May, it will be 1 year. I was removed in May, illegally removed in May. I was reinstated by the political party tribunal 3 months later. That ruling was ignored. So for me, it is literally being vindicated. Another affirmation that I am on the right path. And it's normally people choose the easier path. But in the long run, they come to realize that the easier path actually was never really the easier path, I can tell you. And now more than ever, I feel that for me, it was an experience I've learned from. I'm glad that I have braved the weather through this 1 year later. There was a huge push by, of course, this government, by specific individuals from parliament who've been fighting me to make sure that I don't get to see this day in terms of even just my health, my livelihood, my life. And every day that I wake up to speak up for the things I have been speaking up when I was in Senate and outside, for me, it feels like it's a blessing.
Okay.
And I can tell you that the idea of parliament having been captured, or the idea of parliament being rogue, because that's what parliament is right now, as an institution, is being rogue. Because how are you the institution that is mandated to legislate, to create laws? You create the laws, you put them out there, but you're the first institution to not follow the laws. That is the paradox of it all. I can tell you that today, as we sit, Parliamentary Service Commission has a secretary whose contract ended in November 2024.
Gloria.
Yes, and he's still in office.
Gloria.
The clerk of the Senate, his contract ended in 2024 November. And if I'm lying, I challenge anyone to bring the contract. And these are people who are still in office, drawing salaries. I was reinstated 3 months after I was illegally removed. There's a very nice lady there who has been drawing a salary illegally. And not only drawing salaries, I can tell you, for instance, those two individuals have been traveling. I was reading a Twitter thread of someone who lost their loved one because that particular county didn't have a CT scan. And then someone commented and said, if they would just take 4 vehicles from the government, they would be able to buy a CT scan. You can buy at least maybe 5 CT scans from the salaries and the benefits and the trips that have been utilized by these two individuals who are in parliament. I can tell you for a fact, I'm talking and people are saying, yes, I have a vendetta again and again over this individual. Because for me, it is not the individual, it is not the person, but it is the example of the office holders. Because this is the person that also decides whether you get a salary or don't get a salary. This is the person that stops the salary, or, So for me, it is not the individual. I'm not talking about Kevin Osida. I'm talking about that office and how it has been abused to the extent that Kevin, you can sit in office with an expired contract from November 2024. The chair of Parliamentary Service Commission, I don't know whether he's absent because that is the Speaker, Weta. The commissioners, I don't know what is happening because the commissioners are supposed to make sure that things are streamlined. So that's why when you ask me, we have orders. We are giving orders, but we are giving orders to people who in themselves are already breaching their own standing orders, their own laws that they were placed. The institutions that were placed to oversight are in fact acting rogue. Are those the people you're expecting will implement orders? To bring in someone who has been calling out and saying this is wrong, this has to be right?
So then you can hear the cry of Kenyans then, because if we're talking about the systems that have essentially been set up within government to run the country, if they are operating outside the lines that have been drawn constitutionally, then what do you expect will happen when it comes to the securing of livelihoods of Kenyans? And I'll continue let that be the default marker, the people of Kenya. Because here we are, and if it was not Senator Gloria Orwoba who was slighted for whatever issue, then some of these things would not come out. Now, of course, subject to verification about whether this gentleman or these two people have been in office without contracts or without the proper paperwork. I mean, it's ludicrous to try and imagine that kind of thing is going on within Parliament. Remember that this is
Parliament is the one that oversights.
This is the legislative arm of government.
I have always asked this question. Every single institution under the executive, every parastatal, every government entity is actually kept in check by Parliament. Parliament plays oversight to everything. Think of a parastatal, think of a school, a hospital, any institution, including private entities, because private entities, if they are operating outside of the law, Parliament can actually highlight and use the authorities either to take licenses, trigger some level of judicial proceedings or something. So, but who oversights Parliament?
Because
you see, the problem has been who oversights. There is a prefect here.
Yeah.
And the prefect was put there in the assumption that prefect will follow the laws. But now when the prefect breaks the laws, who goes to say, hey, you? Nobody. And that is why they can spend billions. That is why they can have people without contracts. That is why anybody who tries to speak up, including the parliamentarians who are lawfully voted in to actually make sure that things are in order, cannot speak up. Because you will speak up and... Gloria Orwoba playbook. That is what's going to happen to you.
But these things come into light because an incident occurred that involved you.
Yes.
So how many things are
happening without the knowledge of Kenyans?
And people do not know.
So many.
Because people are not going to ruffle any feathers because they're comfortable in a particular situation.
Absolutely.
So does it take a scandal? Does it take an incident then for people to then know that actually the systemic fissures in the country will continue deepening and widening until and unless something happens?
I tend to think this way. Until we get to a point where we can really trust independent institutions to abide by the law, there has to be checks and balances. The same way we have put Parliament to check the executive and all other bodies, there should be an independent body put to check Parliament. Because the wastage that is happening in Parliament, the illegalities that are happening in Parliament. Today, if you just type in, if you have some researcher who's dealing with parliamentary cases, just to see how many things that are happening illegally, so many. But the fact that nothing can happen. You see, I reported a case.
What do you mean nothing
can happen? I reported a case. Kevin is here. Kevin, you are in human rights and you know about safeguarding. Yeah. It can be a ludicrous report. The first thing you do is you investigate. You investigate.
Right.
If someone reports a case and nobody's interested in investigating, you have to ask yourself, why? What is the issue?
Who is after you?
Yeah. So, to date, when I tell you, nothing has been investigated. And in fact, if anything, they have placed so much emphasis, resources. They've been paying for lawyers, both internal and external lawyers, to make sure that I stay out of Parliament. They've been, they've actually gone out of their way to resource certain departments to make sure that they are finding a way that they don't allow me my rights. And the truth of the matter is, that is not just happening to me. You saw the case of Anthony Kibagendi, who is it's a witch hunt since he actually highlighted the issues that are happening in the Ministry of Health with the SHA and the back and forth that he had with Adan Duale. And from then, it's been chaos in his life. He's been arrested, he's been driven to Kisumu, down to Kisii in the middle of the night. He has had to pay for lawyers to go to court to, defend his rights as an MP who's playing the oversight role. He came with court orders, presented them to the floor of the House. Wetangula, in his fashion, said they are not going to follow those orders because apparently Parliament is independent of any orders of the court system. And
I'm sorry, no, it's not.
No, but that's the ruling that he gave, that Parliament is independent of it, and parliamentary processes cannot be interrupted by the judicial process. That's what it brings you back to. It's very good Parliament. You're independent. You always remember you're independent, specifically when you want to be rogue. But when you are supposed to be independent against crazy instructions coming from State House, that time they're quiet. But they said Parliament is independent. That's fine. Parliament is independent. But does that mean that Parliament is above the laws that they create? And it's a very thin line, because I hear two-term, three-term parliamentarians saying that, you can't come with court orders to Parliament. So if you can't come with court orders to Parliament, it begs the question, if today something happens in Parliament, someone loses their life. Are they trying to say that that is not a situation that will follow due process under the judicial system? So there's a thin line, and honestly speaking, it has been abused. You can continue seeing being abused. By the way, we served the orders last week. So essentially what should have happened is a communication should have been made either through the speaker or directly as a memo to me, a letter, something. Nothing has happened. We served again yesterday, just in case they didn't receive
maybe somebody didn't see
service.
The email.
And I can tell you this: we are only doing it to tick the boxes, because the regime will not be there forever. And people are saying, that's a ruling that has passed. Has been overtaken by events. I want to draw their attention to Kenyans. They might not be aware. Maybe those days there was no social media. But there's a time we had senators who were nominated under the persons with disability.
Yes.
And there seemed to have been a confusion or some kind of corrupt dealing that happened. And so then the people who ended up in Senate were apparently not the people who were in the original list. So they were sworn in. So you can go and check up the list and check. So they were sworn in.
Big names.
They served, do you remember?
Yeah.
And they served for about a year. While the case was ongoing, challenging the people who had been nominated. The case was won. The people who went to court saying, hey, it was us who should have been nominated.
Yes.
They won the case after about a year. And orders were given, same, just like this one for reinstatement, that in fact you've been having the wrong people in Senate.
Yeah.
The Speaker of the day, because he's not above the law, read the communication, the orders, and said because of these orders from the High Court, we are sorry, but actually the rightful nominated senators is so and so.
Yep.
And those who had been sitting for a year, collecting salaries for a year, received grants for that particular seat, were taken out, and the other ones were put into Senate. So that's one. Isaac Mwaura, the government spokesperson, went through a similar process where at that time Jubilee tried to remove him for having a divergent view, by the way. And then he went to the political parties tribunal, and then he also went to the High Court, just what is happening to me. And same kind of orders came out saying that he has to be reinstated, and that was after 7 months. And the Speaker of the day at that time did the right thing. He followed the orders that came, and he said, you know what? The orders have been served. This is the situation. Isaac Mwaura, take your seat. And he took his seat. It was a communication.
But you say these things as though they're crazy. I mean, it's like fantasy that people actually observe. It seems because it seems like the absolute opposite is happening currently.
Yeah.
But it seems as though people have been conditioned to imagine that court orders are things that should not be adhered to, or that the rule of law is a suggestion.
They should be adhered to. And you see, when I think it's also the fatigue of trying to explain to people what is really happening. And I'm glad that eventually I'm not glad. That sounds bad because it's like saying I'm glad bad things are happening to other senators. But I when there's one time when the clerk of the Senate drafted an apology and forced me through the speaker to read it.
Yeah.
Everybody saw what happened. The apology was self-incriminating. I refused. And I said to the members, this is the upper house. And you're allowing for this kind of things to happen in the upper house. And today is me. But tomorrow is going to be someone else. I can tell you the craziness that has been happening since I left that place. I can tell you when Senator Osotsi was attacked in Kisumu, for whatever reason, whatever reason you want to say, he was attacked in Kisumu for his political stand, divergent opinion, whatever. To date, the Speaker of the Senate has never said anything about it. Can you imagine this? The Speaker of the Senate has been quiet throughout a season when one of his members has been attacked in hospital. And it has been highlighted that it is because of having a political divergent opinion, being in a formation that is anti-government. The Speaker of the Senate, his member, he's sitting there. To him, it is business as usual. That is the kind of house that we have right now. And it's not that he had to say anything grand. I mean, literally, it's to observe. One of our members has been at it. Goes to show you that it depends on which member of the Senate will die. If the member of the Senate belongs to a formation that is not respected by government, he might not even give an internal communication. It's like good riddance. So that is the kind, when you look at this parliament, when you look at this particular National Assembly and the Senate, this has been, and in the eyes of many who have served in parliament, many who have worked in parliament, and many who have observed, including myself, this has been the lowest ever that this institution has ever gone to. The lowest. And they might try to blame it on members. Oh, it was the lowest because we had these taka people like Orwoba. No. It was the lowest because certain people actually highlighted what has been ongoing for years and years and years. And not only that, it is the lowest because it has reached a place where staff members in these institutions are taking directions from State House. They have forgotten who they serve in Parliament. They are now taking directions from State House. They are taking directions from the Cabinet. They have no respect, absolutely, for the members of the House. They have no respect for the law. And they are walking around with all this bravado. This has been the lowest.
Senator, I'm just wondering, because we already have quite positive precedents in terms of how similar cases like yours have been dealt with. And you've also enumerated the number of letters that have been sent to
so many
to Bunge, and no action is being taken.
Yes.
Yet in the other two cases, and there could be more even at the county assemblies. Of course, this is Senate.
There are many.
Yeah,
there are
quite
many.
A number of cases.
Yes.
Why is yours different? That even letters go and received and responded to. Yet remember that even before you were nominated, you and I and many other people were joking, and you kept telling us, Osido, mimi nitakuwa bungeni. I'm going to the Senate. This is many months.
I tell many, actually more than a year. I used to tell you I'm going to
that you had a very special space from your party leader, your party, even the leadership of the executive of your party. Why is your case different? Why is there no attention?
First, when Reinstatement used to tell you from 2020, I'm going to Bunge, because I vied to go to Bunge.
Yes.
So I was telling you in the assumption that I'm going to get elected and I will be in Bunge.
Yeah.
Of course, as time passed and we reached the primaries and I vied for the Bobasi constituency seat, and I lost under the UDA party primaries. I came in second with about 7,000 votes. At that point, it was like, okay, I can't believe this, because of course, as a first timer, there's so many things you do, you don't learn and everything. When my party leader sat me down and said, you've lost, because if you won, you would have come with a certificate. So you've lost, you don't have a certificate. I said, no, but I came back to this country to join politics to go to Bunge. So I must go to Bunge. And yes, he was like, okay, you have been active in politics, you vied, you are the forefront on the Women Charter, blah, blah, blah. I think you can actually represent the women of Kenya in the Senate. There's nothing special about me. The only difference is that when we got there, you have two paths to choose. You can choose the highway, smooth, money, trips. You see them posting photos, New York, UK, London. Behind the scenes, you don't know what these women are going through. That's the easy way.
Wow.
The hard way is to ask, why am I being asked to do ABCD? That's not what I came here to do. Yeah. Why must I go to so-and-so's office to go on my knees and beg for ABCD? That's not what when now you choose that path, you have to realize that path is thorny, it's ikona bandits, ikona nini. So there's nothing special. The only thing that is different about me is that I did choose the difficult path of highlighting injustices that have been happening. I chose the difficult path of even bringing to the attention of the president so many things that he's now having to deal with today as a party leader and as a party. So many things that have sent people to the streets from Gen Z. You know, the demonstrations for Gen Z, I've said this so many times.
Yeah.
Many of us who were in UDA were happy that they happened. Because many of us who kept on saying, this thing is going to reach a place where Kenyans will not accept it.
Yeah.
You have to do something about it. And we were being ignored. We felt vindicated by Gen Z. We were like, this is a good thing. Now, maybe he won't listen to us. Maybe he'll pay attention to the people of Kenya, which eventually he did. We internally were complaining about so many cabinet secretaries at that time who just went rogue, who didn't care about the people, the things that we had promised the people. And every time we raised it, specifically any time I raised it, it would be like, but you know, Orwoba is always just arguing with everyone. Nobody would want to ask, but this point she's raising about fake diaspora jobs, you know, maybe there's something. Can we look into it? Eventually, the president is now battling with the bad reputation that the diaspora jobs thing has brought him.
Yeah.
He's having to deal with thousands and thousands of Kenyans whose family members have died in Russia. Those are votes gone. When I raised the issue of women and gender representation, it is the women, the same women within that party who are silencing me. Eventually, we saw Cecily Mbarire stand up to the president in a very crass engagement to say to him, excuse me, what about the 2/3 gender rule? So every single day something happens in this government, I feel very vindicated. It's just that it didn't have to take that many incidences to get there.
And so then you want to ask the question about then what happens to Kenyans, because we keep pivoting to that.
I think Kenyans are on the right path. When Kenyans are saying we are going out to the streets, it is the same thing as when I said, okay, if you guys are not going to listen to me, I'm going to start doing TV shows and talking about the fake diaspora job. I'm going to do an inquiry at the Senate and bring these people to account. Because also I was like, how many times can I raise this thing internally for you people to pay attention and fix it? If you don't want to fix it, I'll take it to Senate. I took Linda Mama to Senate. I took diaspora jobs to Senate. I took UFA, Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority, to Senate. Now we are being told now how the money is being squandered. You know, if you go and look at my work in Senate, it is almost like a premonition of things to come. And they've all
come so far.
They've all come. In fact, the one thing that I'm really waiting for is the inquiry that I took to Senate about 1 billion Kenya shillings that was spent to buy pads, sanitary pads, for girls in schools. And I brought an inquiry that was never seen to fruition. The Senate sort of just did a lot of things and then then removed me so that we don't finish that inquiry, because a lot of money was lost. It's a big scandal there. And not only was a lot of money lost, a lot of substandard sanitary pads were brought from China. I will always oppose importation of sanitary pads. I will always oppose any kind of importation of sanitary pads, because ask me, first I use pads, so I know what I'm opposing. Secondly, I saw the sanitary pads that were imported in that year when 1 billion Kenya shillings was given. And let me tell you, the amount of thrush, the amount of UTI, the amount of infections that the girls are dealing with now, I can promise you is because of those sanitary pads.
I want to open that up a little bit because then it goes directly to policy. It goes directly to the things, again, that people are saying, let's come out in the street and talk about. But let's take a break, a quick one, and then we'll look at weather and traffic and then come back and continue with this later. Senator Gloria Orwoba is here with us in the studio. We're having this conversation and she's talking about things that she's seen firsthand, but then these trickle and translate to the people. And so what reprieve do people have? Maybe none. And that's why there's Mandamano. We'll talk when we come back from this.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Start your day.
And how can they?
You know, the Bible says, before you are born, God knows your story. He knows everything. He knows the milestones, he knows the changes or, whatever you're going to do. And I believe certain things happen to certain people for certain reasons. And I know that my story is something very drastic needed to happen in the Parliament of Kenya for Kenyans to pay attention to that house. Yeah. And I am very happy that I was instrumental in that. I'm very happy that God used me to be that person. I mean, of course, it's stressful. Yeah. It has had a very huge impact in my life, even how I see things. I have trust issues. I already had trust issues before. Now I have super trust issues. And I know that it's not many people would want. You know, it's that thing of saying saa zingine vitu zingine zinafanyika, but it should not be. I think and I feel very strongly that I'm so happy that this particular incident happened to me.
Yeah, and you raised something quite important earlier on about parliamentary accountability. And if you look at the number of times Kenyans expect Parliament to behave in a manner that really befits the House, august House, you are honorable members. There is something more that you have that others do not have. And your story really paints a very difficult, dirty end of Parliament. Now the Senate, in this case, because that's the House where you sat. But when it comes to parliamentary accountability, what do you think we need to do? What must we do to be able to ensure that Parliament is accountable?
First of all, the idea of court orders being ignored, or the idea of the judicial system and the processes and everything that's churned out from there being ignored, is such a big setback. Because the last line of defense is really the judiciary.
Yeah.
And if we cannot rely on the judiciary, we are going to a place where nobody will want to go to court. Where are you going to court? You'll go to court, you'll get orders, you'll win, nothing will happen.
Yeah.
Why waste money and years staying in court trying to follow due process? You know, I always tell people in this space of business and politics and what I say, sometimes people do things and I'm noted to say that utapigwa risasi in Nairobi. Because people have gotten to a place where they are just done. They're so fed up that they know that even if they go to court, nothing's going to happen. The amount of just random people being shot dead. You got to ask yourself a question. The first thing is, why are people suddenly so angered that they don't want to follow the due process? They just want to come find you in the streets and shoot you. It's a sense of frustration of the processes are not working. Why is it that when we're talking about goons, for instance, in Kisii County, when we were there with the United Opposition, it reached a place that people are just like, apana, sisi tutaua, and they just came down on a goon. You understand? Yeah. Because they're like, because we will report this person, we will take this person to the police station, but the goons are working with the police. So the frustration of the people is, we are not going to do that cycle you want us to do. We'll deal with it now. That's one thing. For accountability in Parliament, in the past Parliament, first of all, they used to have, when you bring a statement at the floor of the House, people debate it, it is highlighted, the ills of that particular industry or whatever. And then there used to be a committee that was, it was like an executing committee. Like once Parliament decides, for instance, that in this particular matter, the board should be resolved, There's been a huge conversation of people being put in boards and they don't know what they are going to do there. Yeah, and a situation like that, for instance, would find itself in Parliament if parliamentarians were serious, if senators were serious, because actually senators are there to protect devolution, and some of the hospitals which the, let's say, incompetent people allegedly have been put are county hospitals. So there should be a statement at the floor of the House questioning why such and such a person is being put at the board. Normally what happens, when that is deliberated even in the committee, then the committee, I was serving in the Labour Committee, and in the Labour Committee, there's one instance where the committee resolved that as a whole board be dissolved. To date, that board has never been dissolved. National Employment Authority Board, NEA, the recommendation from the Labour Committee was the board be dissolved.
Okay.
And
hasn't happened.
it has never happened. So who implements what Parliament puts out? I was...
How has it been envisioned in the Constitution?
There is a loophole.
To understand,
There's actually a lacuna
that
there.
there is going to be a space where there are certain folks who will not be oversighted.
If you ask me, I think that is the loophole. Another very clear example, you saw the governor of Samburu running away from Senate. Yeah? We have clear instructions that if a governor does not come, there's a warning you give them, there's a penalty, and then eventually when all of that doesn't work, the governor should be arrested. And literally arrested, yani IG anapeana nini, arrested and brought before the Senate. It has never happened. You know, people say we are such a democratic country that we were the first to what is it called? We were the first to impeach a deputy president. Wow, bravado, very good. Clap for yourselves. But we have never been the first to arrest a governor and bring them to Senate.
To ask questions about how you spend public money.
Because that's now where you start seeing the gray areas. In one hand, the Speaker of the Senate, Kingi, and the Speaker of the National Assembly will say, we are an independent institution. So they will not implement orders from the High Court that are protecting members of the House. But in another hand, they will receive phone calls or direction or indicators or conversations about certain people here and there. And then there is a clear indication that a governor should be arrested and brought before the House. It doesn't happen. And so you sit there as senators asking yourselves, okay, you know, we can't go and arrest this guy. That's why senators were running on the streets to catch the governor. Because now it's like...
You're not doing your job.
Yeah.
So then, my question then from all of this is that how do you expect then that Kenyans will choose new leadership from this pool that is aware of systemic failure, is aware of, if not involved in corrupt practices today? Because you're talking about a sitting parliament for whom a number of these individuals are coming back, including yourself, who are coming back to people and say, vote for me. How do, not even everybody, how do the people who are sitting in those positions expect Kenyans to make a decision about them in this pool, which by your admission is already a cesspool of corruption, misbehavior, all this? How do Kenyans make a selection from that?
You know me, the real mandamano is, not that this one is fake, but for me, the ultimate test is when a Kenyan can be able, a Kenyan of any level, whether a mama mboga, a boda boda, a PhD holder, banker, of any level, will be able to say, but this guy is nice, yes, he's even on the right side of the divide, but he shot someone to death. And that is where I drew the line. It's upon Kenyans. It's upon Kenyans, you know. It's upon Kenyans to be able to just, they've seen for themselves and analyze, you know, and say, this particular person, right now, I am happy that they are with us. But really, when I look at the things that they have done, I don't think that they have our interest at heart. And that is why every day, for me, has been a battle of dealing with the fake news, because there's been a lot of fake news, for instance, about me and my stand and the things that I have done or not done. And every time I get an opportunity, I always ask people, show me one nominated senator who's out there representing women and girls who has actually stood up and taken action against an injustice that has happened. You know, when I was deporting that Nigerian that was beating the lady in the wheelchair, I was alone. I was alone running up in this with the victim and the family of the victim because she had literally been held hostage. No other, not even the woman representative was interested in that story. Yet that is just one case in point. Yeah? Because they thought this one will not have the attention that we want. This one will not give the public relation that we want. Show me one woman nominated senator who actually went out of their way to fight for women and girls to get sanitary pads in this country. When I highlighted that the money has been stolen, show me one woman who actually came out and even said, there's a statement at the floor of the house, guys, there's money for sanitary pads. If anything, these women were running up and down trying to get tenders to import Chinese products. And every single thing that has happened, now I've had a lot of time to reflect, and I ask myself, will I do it again? Of course.
So would you say, because I'm listening to what you're saying, and you're saying, show me another woman who sits in a position of leadership who did 1, 2, 3.
Show me another
somebody else
woman who stood up and said, actually, it is true, women are having to trade sex for work in parliament.
So why should Kenyans vote for these people? Because
do you know there's
Gloria, why should Kenyans vote for them? Because they're asking Kenyans for their vote. They are asking Kenyans vote for me tomorrow.
I'm highlighting. I might be rogue. I might be the character that I am. I might be, people say, arrogant. It's easy to call a woman arrogant when she stands by what she believes in. Arrogant. I might be, I've told, a drama queen. But I want you to show me one woman in both houses who has actually done half the things I've done.
So should we drain the swamp?
I'm just saying, analyze. Because some people are out here trending because they're beautiful. Yeah? So what? So what's that going to do? You are there to represent women. Women are being raped, murdered. We've seen the guys who've come from studio now talking about all the injustices that are happening, security and safety of women. How is it going to help to that's why I keep saying, show me someone who's nominated who has actually done an impactful thing. You can bring a statement to the floor of the House for purposes of ticking a box. You come, you stand, understanding Order 51C, I want to read a statement on this and that. Then you finish reading it and you go away.
Yeah, you're done.
You're done. You don't follow up at the committee. You don't make noise about it. You don't. When you meet the president, you are smiling and shaking his hand. You are not telling him, by the way, there's this statement I brought. I think this person should do this. You are not actually doing your work because you want to be peaceful and safe. You don't want to ruffle feathers, and you want to eat your salary of 750,000. You want to go to New York and your 1.8 million. You want to take pictures in the United Nations Women Assembly so that you can. But when you come back home, show me one person who you have actually saved from GBV. Show me one person who you have actually spoken about or helped, one family that, nothing. So, and this is if you ask me, the reason why the likes of Sonko remain relevant. They say he's dramatic, he's chaotic, he's all sorts of things, but the lives that he has actually touched and impacted are a lot. I don't want to compare myself to Sonko. I'm just saying, often the people who have an impact in their space are overlooked as dramatic, uneducated, crass, and all sorts of things.
So the people
but the
who
PhD
keep
holders,
quiet,
ask them where the impact is.
So the people who keep quiet, because it's crunch time. Kenyans are making a decision in about a year. So should these people go?
If you ask me, and I will repeat it again, let all of us go home as we are going. When we come back in 2027 to ask for your vote, just assess us on what we have done or not done. Yeah.
Gloria,
because I can tell you 150%. They are nominated senators and members of parliament who have just earned a salary for 5 years.
Looking at your story and really what you have had to go through against the constitutional expectation of 2/3 gender rule, which for close to 12 years now has not been enacted, what would you tell the female gender? And especially those young ladies out there who want to run for office and they are looking at you and they are saying, Like we used to say in 2020, I want to be like Gloria.
I'll tell them no one is coming to save you. Nomination seats are bullshit. Sorry, are useless.
Okay.
In the sense that you are nominated to oblivion. You are nominated to be silenced. You are
They've given you something to do in the corner.
You are nominated to actually kill your drive, as it stands now in the arena of politics. A nominated member of parliament is not allowed to be a member of parliament. So why nominate them? It's better you tell them that they will be coming to sit as guests in chambers and not participate, because
in the past they would not even be committees. They were not even.
You know what I mean?
Members, yeah.
So no one is coming to save you. What is supposed to act as a springboard is actually being used to silence potentially active women leaders. And that people say, oh, that is theoretic. It's not theoretic. You go in, you're active. Kevin, we did so many shows with Kevin.
Yeah.
Kevin knows the passion I have for women, girls, the gender agenda. You know, we did many shows when I was telling you this and that.
And then one day you decided to make me walk out.
And one day you walked out. You remember when you walked out on the show? Because I was so passionate. I was telling you, we're going to change the world. We're going. And I went in there with that same passion. I maintained the same passion. But look at what has happened to me. Now, Kevin knows there are so many other people who had my passion. They went in.
And went silent.
And went silent because of the dynamics of being nominated. So if you are telling me, I'm going to help you get elected, let me place you here so that I can silence you, that is not helping me.
Indeed, it isn't. As we have these conversations, a lot of stuff that's said is being listened to, and a lot of stuff that's not said is being listened to as well.
Correct.
Gloria Orwoba, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank
Time
you.
runs out.
Oh, I know, but I have to wish those of us who will get the opportunity to go out for Mandamano, to stay safe.
Okay.
Because it's a thing that's happening, and for most of the time I tell Kenyans, you are saying politicians are horrible. What are you doing? So when a Kenyan decides I'm going to be an active Kenyan and go and speak up, that's commendable. So I want to wish them all well as we keep speaking up on the ills of this country.
Asante sana for being here this morning. Our conversations continue. It's 2 minutes
you.
past 9.
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spot.